On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about check-ins, jewelry, and 6 minutes, not 4 minutes for that JT, and what's her name? That old girl, Madonna. You need more than 4 minutes. You need 6. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition, another episode of the Luke Who's Talking podcast. How you been out there? Hope you're going all right. My name is Steve, as always. So, excuse me. Check-ins, and so. I don't know if this is particularly happening where you live in the world, but here where I live, whenever you go somewhere, they would like you ideally to check in. So you can either have an app on your phone, and places have a QR code, you just scan it, or some places still have paper, you just put your name on there, and I think a contact number, pretty much. Or you can do it in the app. Now, the idea is, if you've been somewhere where somebody has been that has got the cause, you'll get a notification saying, well, you've been somewhere where somebody who's got the cause has been. So so it's a measure that has been put in place in regards to the cause. So regardless of whether you think that's right or wrong, that's irrelevant to this. Anywho, now when you go to the hospital, of course, you've got to check in. Interestingly, though, the health department with a hospital has a different check-in thing as opposed to what you do when you go to other places. I don't get that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks back, and they go to the hospital because the hospital has a pharmacy there. So there's a pharmacy at the hospital. Not a big surprise, that, I'm sure. But, depending on what medications you're on, there's only some you can get there from the hospital, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that's fine. No problem. Now, this particular person was whinging about, you got to do your check-in every time you go to the hospital to get stuff. Right, so we're having a bit of a meltdown about it. However, and I said, now, it's more so of a situation of you're not overly thrilled about something. You are then offered an alternative, and you're still not happy about it. So I did say, well, if you go around to one of the side entrances, the side entrance for a pharmacy is, there's a number, there's a big sign, there's a phone number. You can call the number, so you're here there for a pickup, and they will bring it out to your vehicle, or they'll bring your ordered meds out to you. So I said, well, why don't you do this? Oh, no, I'm not doing that. And I was just like, what's your problem? So, right, yeah, okay, you've had a bit of a meltdown about having to do a check whenever you need to go into the hospital. Okay, it's fair enough. I can cope with that. However, you're offered a very good, tangible option, right? And then it's dismissed instantly. Well, okay. What's your problem with that? Seriously. Come on. Oh. So I was like, right, okay, whatever. Moving on from that. Yeah, anyway, speaking of moving on, move on to the next segment, I think. But now I'm going to rant. Here's a question for you, listener. You never answer them, but hey, I'm going to keep asking them. Have you ever, has somebody ever had a bit of a whinge to you about something, and then you have offered them or have explained to them a very tangible alternative option, and it's still knocked back? I'd be interested to know. Think about it. Anyway, let's get into the next story. Excuse me. Anyway, so a couple of years ago, you might remember, I think it might have been about 2 years ago, I did an episode where I talked about being on jury service, jury duty, whatever you want to call it. However, at the time, I didn't actually get on a jury, but I was on jury call again last week, or the previous 2 weeks, and I got a Guernsey. I got a run on a jury, and it was very, very interesting. It was just an interesting experience, I think, to be on a jury, be part of a trial by jury. Do 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 do. Breaking out into Law and Order there. Excuse me. But yeah, it's very interesting to be on a jury, and so basically, what happens is you get a letter in the mail says you're on jury. It's like, okay, you've been summoned to the court, so you go to the court, the Supreme Court, and then you go into just all the jurors gather in a room, everybody who's been on call. And then in the courtroom, the clerk, the assistant, whatever, I'm not sure what the title is. Anyway, they have a box, everybody's names in it, so they pull them out of the box. So then you go and gather in the jury area. Then what happens is the judge will ask the prosecution and the defence if there's any jurors they want excused for whatever reason. So, if somebody is excused, then the somebody else gets pulled out of a hat. And then also the judge will ask the jury if they know any of the witnesses or if they know anything about the case, because if that is the case, they say something and then you're excused. Or if you have like an appointment that you've been waiting 6 months to have, and if you miss it, you're going to have to wait like another 6 months to have it again. So the judge asks you these questions, and depending if you say yes, I've got an appointment tomorrow, but I can get one next week. He'll say that no, you can get one next week. Like, we're not going to excuse you for that. Anyway, so you do that, and then you have your sworn in and all that jazz. You go to the jury room and these bits and pieces, and then the trial starts. So the case I was on was only short. It was one and a half days. We heard all the evidence, etc., on the first day, and then the second day was just the closing arguments by the defence and prosecution, and then we retired, and we were provided lunch, but we retired and deliberated our judgment. One thing which I was surprised by, maybe, was just the sheer amount of admin, right? Because we had in evidence photographs of the crime scene. Is probably a dramatic word, but of a particular area, and there was about 20 photos. So each of the jurors got a stack of these photos, so that's 12, and then the Crown or the prosecution had a set. The person on the witness stand had a set. I assume the judge also had a set of photographs, and then the defence had a set of photographs. So there's like 16, 17 sets of photos, 20 pictures all up, and they were all numbered, and all that. So just like the the work somebody's had to do in prepping those pictures, printing them out, labeling them all, putting numbers on them all, and putting them all together, I thought was the admin. And then we got other little bits and pieces of evidence, a few bits of papers and whatever else. And then when we went to deliberate, there was a transcript. We had a transcript of the witness, examinations and such, which was actually interesting to flick through and to go through to see what was actually said, I guess you could say. So that was interesting, and there was a lot of just the admin. And then when we were leaving, the court sheriff, I believe the guy's title is, he was like, oh, all this, all the evidence and notes and things you've taken, he's like, that you've all got to, it's all, you can't take any of it because it's all going to be destroyed. So I thought, oh, wow, okay. But yeah, no, it was an interesting experience. I think if you're in a position where you get called onto a jury, you might think, oh, geez, I've got to have a few days off work or whatever. But I think it's an interesting, I don't know, life experience, could I say? And we had to come up with a unanimous decision. The judge told us, your ruling's got to be unanimous, and 11 out of the 12 of us agreed on one particular ruling. So there was somebody we had to have a bit of a talk with to, I won't say flip, but they had a theory as to, they had a theory about things, and there's a few of us, we thought that, I thought, and a few of us thought that this juror's theory was solid, very plausible. However, the Crown, the prosecution, hadn't proved it at all, and they didn't even really attempt to. So we had to. So it was like, that's a good theory, and you're probably right, because it was all a bit dodgy, a bit shifty. But we couldn't say. You can't do a guilty plea on a very plausible theory somebody has. There's no proof. Yeah, so there you go. And just on the unanimous decision, it was the week after. So this last week specifically. On the front page of Daily Rag, there was now this would have been the case that was tried after mine, but there was a thing on the newspaper, and it was like, oh, jury unanimously agree on, to convict so-and-so. And I read it, and I said to somebody that, well, actually the judge told us when I was on my case, it has to be a unanimous decision anyway. So it's really comical how, the old paper was like, oh, unanimous, jury found guilty. It's like, well, it's every decision in the court is a unanimous decision. Like, anyway, whatever. Yeah, anyway, that's enough about that. We're going back to hospital after this. No, it's empty. Yeah, so on Monday, I just had to have a quick procedure, quite literally quick, but I had to have a procedure because I've in the past I've had some varices in my esophagus. So I have an OGD, which is like an endoscope, so put a little camera down your gullet and just check it out, make sure it's all okay. So this is something I've had annually for, I don't know, 13 or 14 years probably. Actually, well, when I first started to have them, I had them more frequently, but then after that, it's, annually. And anyway, so yeah, it's just an annual varice check. Anyway, whatever you want to call it. So I had the procedure, and when I woke up, any anesthetic wore off a little bit. Because I was on a bed. And anyway, then I was, moved to like a little cubicle thing. It was like an armchair there. You just sit there, and they bring you some food and whatever else. Anyway, that's fine. So you have your little bundle of paperwork, and they shove it in like a little, it's like a little sleeve. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's like a little sleeve thing, on the wall. And something I noticed on there, which I thought was quite interesting. Now, it said the time. So it had the time on there the procedure was started, and it had the time on there the procedure finished or concluded. So the time for the procedure starting was 13:27, so 1:27, right? And the time for the procedure ending was 13:33. So I was under for 6 minutes, And I thought that I looked at it, and I looked a couple of times at this bit of paper just to make sure. And I thought to myself, that's I was surprised at how quick it was. So I went under at 13:27, and I arose at 13:33, and I saw it and I thought, what is okay, 6 minutes. I was like, surely it's got to be longer than that. But no, and I looked a couple of times, and even though I was a little bit dreary, and then I sort of was less dreary, I looked at it like, I thought that was really interesting. 6 minutes. And I thought maybe 10, 15, really. Like, it's not a long procedure, but 6 minutes. So like suspiciously long. Anyway, suspiciously short. Anyway, whatever, let's wrap it up. Well, everybody, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you, I don't know, if you've watched, hope you've liked watching. The thumbnail for the video might be interesting because I usually have the orange background, and I've got an orangey, I don't know, what colour could you call this? Is it brown? I've got an orangey, sort of burnt orange, I guess I could say, jumper on, so that could be interesting. But I do usually put like a little white strip around me, so it might not be too bad. Anyway, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Share it around and all that jazz, all that stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. People on YouTube say that all the time, but does it make a difference? Yeah, it probably does. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode 82.